So a warm welcome to all of you here. Thank you for joining our event, which we called Getting Ready for Siem Reap, a dialogue with the APMBC Gender Focal Points. So many of you might know me. My name is Hannah Salama, and I am a researcher at the Gender and Disarmament program at UNIDIR. And today we are really delighted to be hosting this event with the gender focal points of the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention. And these focal points are Japan, Netherlands, Peru, and Thailand. And so on behalf of all the co-organizers, I'd also like to extend a special welcome to those of you who are joining online. So I'd like to inform everyone that we have a few people online, about 13 or 14 people who have joined us online, and that the event will be recorded and shared on YouTube. So yes, please note that we've began the recording. So to get us started here, I wanted to note that we all know that gender and other diversity factors shapes our experiences before, during, and after conflict. The research and the data available on this topic is clear. Landmines, remnants of war, have a differential impact on men, women, boys, and girls. Gender, age, and disability often shapes the experience of a victim or a survivor and mediates whether they can access healthcare or other social services, how they engage in the process of mine clearance and access to risk education, and perhaps more importantly, whether they benefit from mine action and the subsequent land release. So for this reason, gender mainstreaming has remained a priority for many stakeholders in mine action, and including for state parties of the APMBC. In 2019, during the 4th review conference that took place in Oslo, state parties went to amend the working methods of the convention and appointed gender focal points, which were, just to note, the first of their kind, to each of the committees under the convention. So the role of the gender focal points is to provide advice on gender mainstreaming and ensure that the diverse needs and experiences of people in affected communities are taken into account in the implementation of the Oslo Action Plan. So given that the 5th review conference marks the end of the implementation period of the Oslo Action Plan, this event is timely, and it's an opportunity to hear about from the gender focal points about their work, but also to exchange ideas on how this is going and how we can advance further gender perspectives in the convention. We also wanted to take this opportunity to look at what's next after Oslo. So we've all by now seen the draft of the Siem Reap Action Plan, the new action plan, which will be adopted by states later this year at the 5th Review Conference in Siem Reap, Cambodia. And for us, this is a really important event because last year we were supporting member states, and we did some research on the gender and diversity action points of the Oslo Action Plan in a report called Beyond Oslo, Taking Stock of Gender and Diversity in the Oslo Action Plan. And in this report, we looked at the implementation, the reporting on the gender and diversity action points, and made some recommendation for the new action plan. So I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to discuss this, and the copies of this report are available in the room, and also online we will link to the report. So, as we are delighted to have with us, as I said, the 4 gender focal points of the convention. I hope the 4th will join online. We also are delighted to have with us Mr. Ratha Seng, who is a member of the Cambodian presidency team for the 5th Review Conference. So thank you very much for being here. And everyone will share their reflections and exchange ideas on gender and diversity, but specifically also looking at the new Siem Reap Action Plan. And we're also joined online by Ms. Hiba Ghandour of MAG Lebanon. And we're very pleased to have MAG Lebanon with us because they are one of the operators who have been leading on gender mainstreaming in several contexts, but also in Lebanon. And so to get us started, I have the honor and pleasure of giving the floor to Mr. Ratha Seng, who is the advisor to the Cambodian Mine Action Authority and leading on preparations for the 5th Review Conference, which will take place in November this year, as I said, in Siem Reap, Cambodia. So, Mr. Seng, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Good afternoon, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegate and esteemed college. On behalf of President of the 5th Review Conference, it is an honor to join you today as we prepare for the Siem Reap Review Conference, the Siem Reap-Angkor Summit in November. Our collective efforts under the Anti-Personal Mine Ban Conventions have achieved significant milestones. Yet, we must continue addressing the challenge that lie ahead. Under the Oslo Action Plan, we made notable strides to mine clearance, victim assistance, and mine risk education. Many states have integrated convention activity into national strategy, fostering a coordinated approach to mine action. However, challenge persists, particularly in managing new contamination in conflict zones and ensuring the full participation of all gender in mine action program. Additionally, integrating gender-sensitive approach and collecting disaggregated data remain crucial for enhancing inclusivity. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, let me highlight improvement in the Siem Reap-Angkor Action Plan. The Siem Reap Action Plan signifies a renewed commitment to our goal, incorporating lessons learned from the Oslo Action Plan. It broadened our effort by integrating climate change, adaptation, environmental protection, and disaster risk reduction into mine action program. This holistic approach ensures we address the diverse needs and vulnerability of affected community comprehensively. Cambodia provides an illustrative example of gender mainstreaming in mine action. The National Mine Action Strategy in 2018 to 25 has made gender equality a key objective. Through the Clearing for Result project, the Gender Mainstreaming in Mine Action Plan (GMAP) 2021 to 25 was developed. This project integrates gender sensitivity at all levels, promoting the inclusion of women and marginalized populations in minefield planning and prioritization. It also emphasized data collection and monitoring to ensure effective gender-sensitive approach. Way forward in the Siem Reap Action Plan. The Siem Reap Action Plan 2025 to 29 should place significant emphasis on integrating gender perspective into mine action. Key aspects include 1. Inclusive data and reporting. By disaggregating data on mine risk education and victim by gender, age, and disability, we tailor intervention to diverse needs of affected group. Second, context-specific programming. Developing programs sensitive to gender, age, and disability, linked directly to casualty and contamination data, and understanding the affected population risk pattern. 3. Victim assistance and participation. Comprehensive support for mine action for mine victims, integrating services into national policy and emphasize gender equality and non-discrimination. 4. International framework and broader agenda. aligned with international frameworks such as the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and the Sustainable Development Goal, committing to leaving no one behind. 5. Inclusivity in implementation and participation, emphasizing the inclusion of survivors and local mine action operator, recognizing women's unique role in mine action. 6. Addressing regional, cultural, and developmental difference. Promoting strategies that consider regional and cultural context, ensuring gender mainstreaming effort, respect local norms, and address specific challenges. The Siem Reap Action Plan and Political Declaration mark a significant step forward in our journey toward a mine-free world. By acknowledging our progress and facing upcoming challenges, we affirm our commitment to a future where all individuals, regardless of gender, age, or ability, are protected from danger of anti-personnel mines. Let us continue to advance the goal of the Convention with fresh energies and dedication. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seng, for these remarks, and more importantly, for Cambodia's commitment to ensuring gender and diversity remains a priority in the 5th Review Conference and in the new action plan. I'm especially pleased to hear about the cross-cutting issues that are included, including climate change adaptation, and I'm sure we can discuss more about this. And before we get started, I wanted to welcome once more our audience that are joining us online and from their respective capitals. Today is really about discussion and interaction, and we're very pleased that we have the focal points here and the chair of the 5th Review Conference, so really take it as an opportunity. And to do this, I really welcome the participation of those in the room during the Q&A segment, which we will have, and as well as online. So during the Q&A segment, I invite our online audience to put a question by raising their hand, and our online moderator will unmute you, and you can ask your question to the panel. Or even starting now, you can put your questions in the chat, and my colleague Liam will read them during the Q&A. So if you have a question that pops up, please feel free to put it in the chat, and we will address these in the Q&A. So I don't want to take too much more time, and it's with a great pleasure that I wanted to introduce our panelists that are with us. So today we have joining us Atikarn Dioguatana from the Permanent Mission of Thailand to the UN in Geneva. We have also Henriette van Gulik from the Permanent Representation of the Kingdom of the Netherlands to the Conference on Disarmament, and Nana Nagai from the Delegation of Japan to the Conference on Disarmament. And we will hopefully, I'm not sure if he's online yet, but have the Delegate Angel Horna from the Permanent Representation of Peru to the United Nations in Geneva. So, as I said, we're also joined online by Hiba Randur, who is from MAG. And now I'd like to give the floor to Atikarn, who is the gender focal point for the Committee on Survey Clearance and Mine Risk Education. So I'm sure you have your hands full with the core of the convention. And I invite her to speak a little bit about her role, but also about the specific gender and diversity action points in the new action plan, which relate to survey clearance and risk education.
Thank you so much, Hannah. It is my great pleasure to be a part of this panel. And good afternoon, everyone here, and good morning for those participating from different time zones. During my remarks, I will provide some insights on the gender and diversity mainstreaming works that have been gearing toward the greater gender and diversity inclusion in my activities under the Article 5 of this convention. which are demining and risk education measures, as well as some potential suggestion on gender and diversity mainstreaming elements that could be addressed in the next action plan, the Siem Reap-Angkor Action Plan. So please allow me to start with the role of the gender focal points of the Committee on Article 5 implementation. So every year, the committee assesses how states parties strive to achieve gender and diversity mainstream based on the information we receive from the Article 7 Transparency Report, extension requests and work plans, and also from the engagement with different stakeholders. This also includes the civil society and also academia. To name a few, it would be, of course, UNIDIR, GICHD, and the member of the Gender and Diversity Working Group. When we turn to the Oslo Action Plan, it provides several actions and indicators that state parties should strive to achieve. For instance, in survey and clearance of my areas, Action 18 is to encourage state parties with remaining in Article 5 obligations to identify the precise parameters of my area and establish evidence-based and accurate baselines for contamination. So according to that, in 2023, we received that among 30 state parties that have obligation under Article 5, only 9 reported conducting consultations with women, men, girls, and boys to establish contamination baseline. We think that with the consultation and the inclusive approach, it could lead to more comprehensive data. And we, as a committee, also encourage the state party to do more on that. And the next example would be in my risk education and reduction. In Action 29 of the Oslo Action Plan, the My Risk Education and Reduction Program should be context-specific and sensitive to gender, age, disability, and the diverse needs and experiences of affected communities. So in Action 29, in the first indicator, it said that we have to use the action that refer to availability of my risk education and reduction program for all impact population. And in 2023, we found that there's some implementation report progress in implementation of the my risk education and reduction programs for all affected population. But actually, it's quite low, and we also encourage the state party to do more. So during the implementation of the Oslo Action Plan, the committee sees also the shift in states' perspectives and practices that reverse the downsides or disadvantages to recruiting women in clearance rules comparing to men. It shifts to the excel more of the women full capacity in specific contexts. For example, through the establishment of a well-functioning gender and diversity in Cambodia, and also the development of the well-functioning gender and diversity capacity in Iraq, South Sudan, and Yemen, and be thankful for the report. And we also welcome the positive initiatives implemented by states and other stakeholders across the region through numberless activities. To name a few, it would be integrating the gender consideration into the national My Action Strategy, My Action Policy, maintaining gender balance among operators, recruiting female deminers, and promoting female staff to new positions. This is also includes various components of states and other stakeholders' practices, such as introducing the operational rules or equipment on the field that could bring the niche of female officers and deminers while taking into account their physical strength and other conditions. For example, the PPE suit for women deminers that introduced earlier this year by Hello Trust, the training program on risk reduction measures, which are diversified in gender, age, and disabilities, and also the provision of trainer of materials in different languages, including the sign language. I also wish to remind that while striving for greater inclusivity or creating more conducive environments, more meaningful participation of women, victims, and affected communities, state and mine worker can also maintain the efficiency of the mine activities, including in mine risk education and land releasing process. For this, the committee appreciates the work and researches done by various partners, which demonstrate that there's only a little gap in clearance rate and amount of time between women and men in the same operational rules. This is very fantastic. And at the Siem Reap-Angkor Summit this November, state parties will adopt 3 main outcomes, which among that is a new action plan, the Siem Reap-Angkor Action Plan, and based on the implementation and review and build on the Oslo Action Plan, for Thailand, the new action is expected to provide a roadmap to guide state parties individually and collectively at national, regional, and international levels in following areas. First, to broaden the focus of Article 5 implementation from finalization of all contaminated areas by annexing, promotion of greater gender and diversity mainstream in my action, especially women's empowerment and gender balance in my action, whether in survey, clearance, or my risk education, as well as the inclusion of victims, their families, and people with disability in this process. Second, contribution of global agendas, in particular women, peace and security, Sustainable Development Goal 5, as well as reflecting gender and diversity mainstream elements related to my actions in the Pact for the Future, which would be adopted this September. And last but not least, apart from the actions, the indicators of the action are also essential. It means that the indicators must be simplified and feasible to implement and reported. This is important to ensure that effective monitoring is not overburdening state in providing necessary information through the Article 7 reports. And that would be all for me, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Atikarn, for these observations and especially highlighting, cross-cutting agendas. And I'm sure we will discuss this further. So I'd like to now turn to Henriette, who is well known and who is the gender focal point on the Committee for Victims Assistance, to share with us her observations and reflections. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah, and good day to all. It's a pleasure to participate in this panel. And indeed, the Netherlands is a junior member of the Victim Assistance Committee, which is chaired by Slovenia. And the other members of the committee are Burkina Faso and Zambia. The work of the Victim Assistance Committee consists of supporting states parties in their national efforts to strengthen and advance victim assistance, in particular in states parties with mine victims in areas under their jurisdiction or control. Secondly, review the reporting of the Oslo Action Plan as it relates to victim assistance, provide advice and support in a cooperative manner to states parties in the fulfillment of their commitments under the Oslo Action Plan. And thirdly, draw observations in consultation with the states parties concerned and assist these states in making their needs known. Now I would like to give a brief explanation of my role as a gender focal point and what I have done the past year. As mentioned by Hannah in her introduction, the role of the gender focal points is to provide advice on gender mainstreaming and ensure that the diverse needs and experiences of people in affected communities are taken into account. At the APMBC intersessional meeting in June, Peru and the Netherlands have taken the initiative to prepare a joint cross-regional statement on gender equality and diversity in order to strengthen the connections between mine action, the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, and the Sustainable Development Goals, which are, of course, encompasses in Agenda 2030. And we are very pleased that 41 countries co-sponsored the joint statement. Furthermore, I have participated in side events, delivered statements at various meetings, and applied a gender lens in my disarmament work, in particular related to mine action. Gender equality, diversity, and inclusion is important for the Netherlands. In 2022, the Netherlands joined a group of countries that have adopted a feminist foreign policy, and it hosted the Shaping Feminist Foreign Policy Conference in The Hague last year. As a gender focal point of the Victim Assistance Committee of APMBC, the Netherlands is committed to strengthen our collective efforts and to work towards synergies between the Ottawa Convention and other humanitarian disarmament treaties and commitments. Let me now turn to the draft Siem Reap-Angkor Action Plan and elaborate how the draft actions and indicators related to gender and diversity in the area of victim assistance are being addressed. Overall, gender and other diversity factors are comprehensively included throughout the draft action plan, including in the victim assistance section, which encompasses actions 27 to 36. The action points under victim assistance have improved. They are more detailed, and inclusivity and accessibility are strengthened compared to the Oslo Action Plan. The indicator, or Action 35, mentions the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, CRPD, which is great. Although reference is made to the Women, Peace and Security Agenda in the draft political declaration, there is no reference to Women, Peace and Security in the draft action plan, in particular where they could be aligned with the relief and recovery pillars. It would be helpful to propose that a reference to the Women, Peace and Security Agenda be included, for instance, in the introduction section of the draft action plan. Finally, I would like to share some ideas how to advance gender diversity and inclusion at the 5th REFCON and beyond. As mentioned earlier, together with a large group of countries, we delivered a joint cross-regional statement at the intersessional meeting, the first joint statement on gender and diversity in the context of APMBC. I noticed that many more states parties were interested in co-sponsoring, but needed a bit more time to consult with Capital. It might be an idea to continue the initiative and deliver a joint statement on gender and diversity at the 5th REFCON as well. Furthermore, together with the Gender and Diversity Working Group and UNIDIR, the APMBC Gender Focal Points are preparing a working paper on gender diversity and inclusion to highlight the successes of gender mainstreaming in the Oslo Action Plan and reinforce the need to maintain this progress through strengthened provisions in the new Siem Reap Action Plan, including specific recommendations such as strengthening efforts on diversity. Finally, it might be an idea to suggest a dedicated, preferably plenary session on gender and diversity at the 5th Review Conference. This would be an excellent opportunity to hear from donor states and civil society, but most importantly, from affected states. Thank you.
Thank you, Henriette, for sharing these great ideas ahead of the review conference, but for also demonstrating the various roles that gender focal points can have. So not only sort of integrating a gender perspective, but participating in awareness raising, side events, initiating cross-regional statements. So they have many different roles. And now I'd like to turn to Nana from the delegation of Japan for her thoughts. She is the gender focal point for the Committee on International Assistance and Cooperation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nagai, First Secretary from the Delegation of Japan in Geneva. I'm pleased to be here as one of the gender focal points. And firstly, I'd like to thank UNIDEO for organizing this event at such a timely moment. International cooperation and assistance is an integral part of the convention, and I also one of the core commitments for state parties in a position to support other state parties. This includes my country, Japan. Japan has been a member of the Committee on Enhancement of Cooperation and Assistance since 2021 and is currently serving as a gender focal point of the committee this year. The committee is mandated to assist the state parties in full implementation of the Article 6 of the Convention, which includes promoting international cooperation and assistance and encouraging dialogue to facilitate partnerships among state parties and stakeholders. Gender and diversity matters in the implementation of the Convention as it is a cornerstone to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So this should be incorporated within the framework of the international cooperation and assistance. The role of the gender focal point this committee is to provide inputs and advice from gender lens and to ensure diverse needs are taken into account during the work of the committee. This could include, for example, bilateral consultation between the committee and the mine affected states, which took place earlier this year, as well as country-specific meetings such as an individualized approach. Let me briefly touch upon why it is important from Japan's national perspective. Japan is strongly promoting women and peace and security agenda as part of its main foreign policy. Gender and diversity mainstreaming has been incorporated into Japan's official development assistance charter, and Japan supports the implementation of the project that address the WPS agenda. Japan also attaches great importance to gender and diversity sensitive approaches in disaster prevention and response based on our experience of overcoming numerous large-scale natural disasters in our history and has included them in the third WPS action plan of Japan. The concept of the WPS is becoming more relevant as the global security environment is facing increasing challenges. As the UNIDEO research on Oslo Action Plan on Gender and Diversity also pointed out, gender mainstreaming in mine action addressed all 4 pillars of the WPS agenda, which is participation, prevention, protection, and relief and recovery. So it would be beneficial to consider potential synergies between the next APMBC action plan and the WPS. Now, let us now turn our attention to the draft of Siem Reap-Angkor Action Plan. I prepared that slide maybe for your reference. Yes. And with a particular focus on the gender and diversity consideration in the section of the international cooperation and assistance. I would also like to take a look at improvements from the previous Oslo Action Plan. Overall, we see the new draft action plan retains a strong focus on gender and diversity. In the introductory paragraph of the international cooperation and assistance section in the slide, a new phrase has been added stating that the cooperation and assistance should be responsive to gender, age, disability, and other diversity considerations, which was not the case in the previous Oslo Action Plan, so we welcome this development. In the former OAP, there were 2 actions that specified gender and diversity consideration, which are Action 45 and 47. So can you? And in Action 45 of the Oslo Action Plan, states parties are, sorry, next slide maybe. Yes, thank you. State parties are urged to support the implementation of national strategies and work plans that respond to the diverse needs and experience of the affected individuals and are based on sound gender, age, and disability analysis. There are 3 indicators to evaluate the progress of Action 45. However, these indicators do not offer information on whether gender and diversity constellations are being integrated into international cooperation and assistance. Next slide, please. In the new draft action plan, OAP Action 45 is replaced as Action 40. And the third indicator of the Action 40 specifies number of state parties that report considerations for gender and diverse needs of affected communities in providing assistance. We see this is a positive step, but I believe this indicator could be made more accurate if it would quantify the number of the state parties that include criteria sensitive to gender, age, and disability as a part of their cooperation and assistance program. Next slide, please. So Action 47 of the OAP, also Action Plan, underscore the importance of South-South cooperation and sharing the best practices and lessons learned. This may include sharing experiences in integrating data, gender, and diversity constellations into programming. However, again, its indicator doesn't offer an indication of whether gender and diversity constellations are being promoted in international cooperation programs. So next slide, please. In the new draft action plan, the former Action 47 is updated to Action 42, where the wording has been streamlined. As a result, the wording related to gender and diversity considerations has been removed from the action itself. I believe it would be better to retain the elements of the gender and diversity constellation in the new Action 42. We would also like to propose to have a more specific languages in its indicator for measuring the number of the state parties that's reported sharing best practices and lessons learned focused on the inclusion of gender and age and disability sensitive mine action programming or victim assistance, as the current draft indicator doesn't reflect any focus on the gender and diversity aspect. So actions related to cooperation and assistance are relevant for both mine affected states and also donor states who support mine action project. In fact, the donor community has an important role to play in supporting gender and diversity mainstreaming. In this regard, donors should require gender-sensitive programming to address challenges and ensure gender and diversity considerations, such as equal participation and opportunities in mine action and the decision-making process to maximize the positive impact on affected communities. As a gender focal point, another important action that we encourage state parties to do is to take into account gender and diversity in reporting. Annual reports are an important tool to understand how mine-affected states are incorporating gender and diversity perspective into their implementation, and how donor states are promoting gender and diversity in their cooperation and assistance efforts. In reality, while we believe that more states are integrating gender and diversity perspective into their efforts in the field, reporting on gender and cooperation and assistance remains limited. I fully understand that the data collection is always a challenging task, in particular disaggregated data, and my country, Japan, is no exception in this regard. However, reporting is also important to respond to gender and diverse needs. So we believe that reflecting ongoing effort and challenges into reporting is one of the areas that we will require improvement beyond the 5th Review Conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana, and thanks for your candidness that you know, if you're a gender focal point, it doesn't mean that your country is doing everything perfectly, but that it's a dialogue as well between the gender focal points, capitals, and as well with affected states. And I think that's a really important point, that we should always be in dialogue with both affected states and donor community. Finally, we have Angel Horna, who is joining us online. And he has just come off a plane to Lima. So, you know, we are very happy that he's giving his time here. And Angel is the focal point for the Committee on Compliance. And Angel, if you can hear us, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. I don't know if you can hear me well.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Yeah, if video works, it's okay. Otherwise, we keep it as that. It seems that okay. Right. Okay. Okay. So once again, good afternoon, everyone. From Lima, Peru. I am very pleased to be able to join this panel together with my colleagues Athikarn, Henriette, and Nana, and of course with my special thanks to Hannah and the UNIDIR team. As you know, I serve as gender focal point for the Committee on Compliance on the APMBC. This is an important priority for Peru, as gender equality is one of our priorities within the government's policies. We try to align our commitments to gender mainstreaming and ensuring equal participation and representation across all sectors. Perhaps some of you know that currently Peru is presiding over the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum, APEC, and we are hosting throughout 2024 all meetings in Peru. Which, I just arrived in Lima earlier, and everything is welcome APEC participants to Peru. So why I say this is because one of our priorities in APEC is to reaffirm our commitment to inclusive economic growth and realizing the full and equal participation of women of diverse backgrounds in the economy and trade, including women facing socioeconomic challenges, indigenous women as appropriate, women in poverty, women with disabilities, older women, and women living in remote and rural areas. So back to the APMBC and the Committee on Compliance. The role of the committee is to support states parties, as you know, in adhering to their treaty obligations under the convention, particularly Article 8. We do so in a spirit of cooperation, facilitating compliance in a constructive and amicable manner. The committee's mandate includes evaluating concerns regarding compliance with the prohibitions of Article 1, Paragraph 1 of the Convention. We assess whether these concerns are credible, and if so, consider appropriate follow-up actions to assist states parties in addressing the issue. This can involve engaging directly with the concerned state to better understand the situation and offer support in resolving any compliance issues that may arise. In cases where a credible concern is identified, the committee may present preliminary observations at an intersessional meeting and subsequently provide conclusions and recommendations at MSPs or review conferences. Additionally, the committee is responsible for encouraging states parties to submit annual Article 7 reports and reviewing the information provided regarding their commitments under the Oslo Action Plan. The committee is also tasked with incorporating gender considerations and addressing the diverse needs and experiences of affected communities in all aspects of its work. Currently, both the Oslo Action Plan and the draft of the new Siem Reap Action Plan lack specific actions or indicators related to gender and diversity in the context of compliance measures. However, as the committee is mandated to promote reporting on the action plan, I will address the gender and diversity best practices that contribute to the effective implementation of the convention. Action number 1, for instance, emphasizes the importance of national ownership by integrating convention implementation with national development plans and strategies. This includes national strategies on humanitarian response, poverty reduction, and environmental protection. However, it would be beneficial to also integrate gender equality or women's empowerment into these plans, particularly with reference to national action plans on UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on Women, Peace and Security Agenda, which have been adopted by 109 countries as of 2024. Action 4 calls for ensuring that the diverse needs, vulnerabilities, perspectives, and experiences of women's, girls, boys, and men in affected communities, including mine victims, inform all areas of implementation. It emphasizes full, equal, and meaningful participation at the national level and in convention and in the meetings of the convention. This is a critical action point supported by relevant indicators. However, it would be valuable to reintroduce language from the previous Oslo Action Plan, specifically the phase, and I quote, strive to remove barriers to the full and equal participation of women, men, boys, and girls. End of citation, or end of quote. The focus on removing barriers is essential, as it highlights the need to address structural and institutional obstacles to equality, ultimately promoting gender balance at all levels. The indicators for Action 4 encourage states parties to report on how national work plans and strategies integrate the diverse needs and experiences of women, girls, boys, and men, including mine victims. Ensure national strategies are developed through inclusive consultations with stakeholders, including survivors and affected community representatives. Track the number of mine victim organizations participating in convention meetings and the percentage of women participants. These indicators are crucial for measuring progress towards gender mainstreaming in the implementation of the convention. Regarding the percentage of women participation in the meetings of the convention, it is important to accurately reflect the number of women included in state delegations, as this remains an area with low female representation. Another useful indicator, as highlighted by the report done or prepared by UNIDIR, which is called Beyond Oslo, it would be useful to have as an indicator to monitor women's employment in this sector. For instance, tracking the percentage of women employed in national mine action programs and reporting this data in the Article 7 reports. This is a practical way, it seems to me, to measure women's participation in the sector, and many national authorities involved in mine action already are collecting this data. In conclusion, the Siem Reap Action Plan provides solid and practical guidelines for integrating gender and diversity considerations into the overall implementation of the convention. The upcoming 5th Review Conference is an excellent opportunity to generate new ideas to maintain momentum and focus on ensuring the convention meets the diverse needs of people of all genders, ages, and abilities. One potential idea is to convene targeted exchanges between national mine action authorities from different countries on the sidelines of the review conference. These exchanges would focus on sharing practices for developing inclusive national strategies and enhancing diversity within the mine action sector. By including both affected and donor states, the discussions could highlight practical measures for integrating gender diversity and inclusivity into mine action programs. This platform would also allow participants to reflect on successful approaches and best practices, fostering collaboration and mutual learning across different contexts. I look forward to hearing more ideas during the Q&A, and just wanted to reaffirm Peru's commitment to this important topic and remain available for any comment or question you may have. I thank you for your attention.
Many thanks, Angel, especially knowing how early it is there. So your commitment is very clear. Now that we've heard from all the gender focal points, I want to turn to our speaker who is joining us from Lebanon, Hiba Ghandour, who is the program manager for MAG. And the reason why we invited Hiba is really to reflect on what do these action plans, what is the impact of these action points on the ground? And Hiba, you know, we invite you to give us an honest representation of this and of the work you've been doing on gender and diversity mainstreaming. And also we're keen to hear on your suggestions on the action plan or what state parties should be focusing their efforts on in this review conference coming up in November. So Hiba, if you can hear us, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Hannah. Hi, everyone. First of all, let me thank everyone for letting MAG Lebanon, giving us the opportunity to share our journey with gender mainstreaming. I'm gonna share my screen and please let me know once you can see my screen. Thank you so much. So basically, I'll be sharing a bit about how MAG Lebanon was able to mainstream gender throughout the years, what were the success stories, and what were the challenges for us, and how can we overcome them. But first of all, let me please introduce a bit who we are. So globally, MAG, or the Mines Advisory Group, is an international INGO which works more than in over 30 countries around the world. In the Middle East, MAG works in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and recently in Gaza. So looking at Lebanon, we've been working more than 23 years in the country. The activities that we basically do is weapons and ammunition management, and we directly support the Lebanese armed forces. We, of course, do humanitarian mine action and explosive ordnance risk education, EORE, and this is with the support the national authority, which is the Lebanon Mine Action Center, LMAC. In 2023 alone, our activities were able to benefit more than 31,000 people or affected people in Lebanon. So all the activities I'm going to talk about today is basically the work of the Gender Diversity and Inclusion Committee in Lebanon, which was established in 2020. And now in 2024, we are restructuring our committee for several reasons. Basically, we started with a baseline assessment with the support of GICHD. This allowed us to kind of focus on specific areas on how can we improve our gender approach. So one of the activities we looked into is raising awareness, whether we're talking about internally to MAG or we're talking about the humanitarian sector overall or the mine action sector in Lebanon. The second thing is that we looked into our processes and procedures, how we are shaping our activities, and how can we change our processes and procedures to allow our activities to better mainstream gender and to integrate gender and diversity into our activities. After that, we looked into our internal practices and we assessed the way we do things and we started to improve the way we do our activities. It's very important to understand that we cannot go alone. We cannot do this job alone. So basically, we started building a community of practice, as I just mentioned, whether it is internally to Lebanon or at the global level. And realizing that MAG is a humanitarian mine action organization. So basically, it's very important that we look into civil society organizations which could help us. These organizations whose mandate or their objectives is around women empowerment, gender mainstreaming, and so on, so we can benefit from each other in the sector. So at the left, you see the first photo for the first meeting of the Gender Diversity and Inclusion Committee. It's very clear that it was COVID time. And the second photo is from a mission to Iraq program where we did a baseline assessment for their gender activities. So now we'll start with our achievement or our success stories. What we were able to do is that we looked into our leadership representation. And again, if our leadership is diverse, this will positively affect all of our activities and decision making, because at least we would understand the different needs or the diverse need of different communities or groups. We looked into also the woman role in mine action. So how can we increase the woman role in mine action activities? So basically, we looked into our HR practices in general, at our recruitment, training, opportunities, and other activities, and how can we look for gaps and overcome these gaps so that we can ensure women actively participate in our activities. We also look to our female representatives in the organization, and we talked about their needs, all the challenges, and how MAG can overcome these challenges. So one of the positive outcome of these activities is basically, as of today, our community liaison team is gender balanced. These teams are the ones who do non-technical survey, explosive ordnance education, and community engagement. We were very lucky to have the first field operation manager as a woman, and the field operation manager is currently an international technical field manager in Syria program. We were also able to promote 2 community liaison officers, 2 community liaison team leaders, and these are critical roles in operations. Our senior management team has a 45% representation of women. We don't want to forget that it's not only about women. We have to engage men and boys, and to better explain what do we mean by gender and why gender is important in mine action, why it's important to include everyone. So the way we've done that is through trainings, as we said, awareness session inside MAG internally, but at the same time we initiated social campaigns on our social media platforms in order to show why gender is important, why it's important in mine action that everyone is included. Some of the positive outcomes is that more men are actively engaged into being part of gender mainstreaming, and in the new members of the committee, we have more men are asking to be actively part of this committee. Again, we have a lot of community leaders, and we're talking about men community leaders who are happily participating in this campaign and talking about the role of women in the community and how important it is that they are part of mine action overall. Sorry, something went wrong. Okay. So another thing that we worked in is our explosive ordnance education, and how we made it more inclusive is basically by looking into we looked into our SOPs, and we looked at the data collection forms, and today all of our data collection is not only disaggregated by sex and age, but also according to Lebanon context. Also, it is disaggregated by nationality and by status of displacement. As we speak, we are in discussion with the national authority into adding disability as part of this aggregation, and this has been included in their national strategy and also in the national fear of change. Looking at different needs, different groups, it means that we need to have different ERE tools, and we have two different tools. Some of them are very traditional. So it's not about the tool itself, it's about how we were able to meet people in specific times and places. And one of the examples I'm going to give is that we had farmers and shepherds where were not attentive to us during the day when we go, because basically they are working. So even if they accept to talk to us, they were not really responding well. So what we have done is that we went to a public or a national marketplace where it's a specific day. You will have market for the community itself, where these farmers attend either to sell their products or to buy equipment. So MAG has added a booth, delivered ERE sessions there. Also, they roomed around that marketplace to talk about awareness sessions. So this is the way we were able to engage this specific group of people. We have innovative methods like puppet show, digital ERE, and virtual reality, which there are reasons why we integrated these methodologies into our process. Now, what are we working towards is basically first looking into producing inclusive materials that meet specific needs for certain disabilities, and also looking into not only our target groups in our ERE approach, but also to other groups that could influence this target group, so that we can have at a community level a change of behavior. Other activities that we have included gender is basically, as we said, our weapons and ammunition management. One of the activities that MAG does is basically we deliver training to Lebanese armed forces in ammunition management, storage, and disposal. We talked to the headquarters. We wanted to include more women into these trainings. It was not possible. One of the challenges was there's no accommodation. So as we speak, MAG is building or constructing a training facility where it is taking into consideration the needs of the women in accommodation. Also, the whole building meets the needs of people with disability. In clearance activities, basically, we know that this sector is a male-dominated sector, so we try to promote more inclusion of women or into this sector. So either by promoting women in operational roles on our social media platforms, also showing role models, actual role models from the community where women were able to do this role very well. Also start looking into our internal policies, our HR policies. How can we make the environment more healthy, encouraging for minorities to join MAG, basically by looking at our safeguarding policies, our handbooks, and other activities. Also, we offered investment in the capacity development. So we're adding capacity development in every budget, in every project we have, as much as possible, so that we can support women into advancing in their career. The non-technical survey, basically, what we have done is that we changed our SOPs, we changed our data collection forms to encourage and to allow us to seek input from different groups in the community itself. So this aggregation of data helps us to analyze the data and to see if we are reaching everyone. Also, the way we build our focus group discussions is that we have different groups or different meetings based on, understanding the power dynamics and the different needs in the community. All of our NTS staff undergo gender-sensitive training to allow them to understand the culture they are dealing with and to understand the different needs of different groups in the community itself. As I said, building a community of practice, and this has been done at 3 levels. It has been done within Mine Action Community in Lebanon, in the humanitarian sector overall, or in Lebanon, also globally in the Mine Action Community. In Lebanon itself, collaboration with UNDP, we have been supporting the LMAC, the National Authority, on different levels. Some of the things we have done is basically we've delivered training sessions and awareness session on how to gender mainstream to LMAC representatives and also to HMA operators, so that we all are working in harmony. Also, we looked into the National Mine Action Standards, and we supported the LMAC into reviewing the National Mine Action Standard to reflect the International Mine Action Standards and also the different needs in Lebanon. And this will result into changing the data collection form and the disaggregation of data as we speak. We looked again, gender now is a specific objective in the national authority, and definitely it has specific objectives. We were able to create a national gender and diversity steering committee in Lebanon. Also, this week we are initiating the first gender forum. In the humanitarian sector, as I just mentioned, that since MAG is specific in HMA, it's very important there will be collaboration with other local NGOs in the humanitarian sector in Lebanon. We've done a lot of sessions together, but one of the things that we have done is basically when we do any job announcement, we go to these local NGOs where we use their platforms to announce our job announcement or vacancy announcement. This will attract more women or different vulnerability groups to join the mine action sector. Looking again at the wider mine action sector globally, one of the things that MAG Lebanon is doing is basically it's supporting other MAG programs globally into sharing our experience, talking about the challenges, what worked well, what didn't, what are the tools we have used, etc. Also, supporting other HMA programs beyond MAG is that or I personally participated with GICHD in the delivery of 2 gender focal point programs focused on the Arab region. And basically this allowed us to support national authorities and also international INGOs in several countries into mainstream gender. As you can see, this is an example on your right. This is a project has been done with the Libyan National Mine Action Center, where you can see that some of the ERE tools have been produced more gender friendly. Sorry, yes, more disability friendly. What are some of the challenges and opportunities we have seen throughout the years? One of the main challenges is basically lack of gender expertise in the HMA sector, and basically even there's a will to mainstream gender at the leadership level, but there's a lack of knowledge, lack of tools to be used, and to understand how to implement these tools. And also lack of funding always plays an important role, because there isn't enough funding and always there are priorities, competing priorities. So it's very difficult for organizations to invest into attracting gender expertise and adding more positions. So what we can do with that is basically we have discussed our experiences, success stories, how can we mainstream gender, and also programs like the Gender Focal Point program helps to show that you don't have to be a gender expert so that you can start implementing gender mainstreaming into our activities. There's always the cultural barrier that exists, but again, to make a change at a society level, it takes time. As we said, funding constraints is very important because basically most of the programs, most of the organizations or the programs in countries are already established and the staffing are there. And the funding for HMA is decreasing, so basically we are not expanding. It does not mean that we cannot have job opportunities, we cannot give jobs for women and other vulnerabilities. It just means that the process is slower. It's not as fast as we hope for. What do we call for in the international community? Well, basically, as we're talking right now, the continuous collaboration between national authorities, between the international community, and definitely between organizations like MAG could help making gender as a priority in mine action. It's very important we keep talking about gender. How can we mainstream gender? How can we report our work on gender, which would make our activities more inclusive? It's very important that countries add gender into their priorities and their strategies. This will help us all to advocate, or help people like me in Lebanon to advocate more about including gender in their activities. On your right, you can see a sample of our risk education activities dashboard, and you can see that we have different, this is how we can present data based on different groups and vulnerabilities in our communities. Thank you so much for giving me the time. Again, I'm more than happy to take any question you have. And I hope we can really do better in terms of mainstreaming gender. Thanks.
Thank you, Hiba, so much. This was a very rich presentation, and the case of Lebanon is also very rich in terms of diversity and gender and all the different communities there. And it's great to see that you've been reaching out and really expanding our understanding of diversity. I think that's really important. So now I really would like to invite you, all of you here in this room and also online, to ask the panel any question, to engage. We are here for engagement. And again, just to remind those of you who are online, you can type a question or you can raise your hand and the moderator will unmute you. But maybe we can start with anyone here in the room. If you want to raise your placard, have any comments or questions, we are here to listen. Go ahead, Renata.
Hello, maybe I'll go first just to break the ice a bit. So I'm Renata Dall'Acqua from UNIDIR Gender and Disarmament Program. I really enjoyed the presentation of everyone that's been on the panel, and I just wanted to congratulate the Gender Focal Points for their commitment, their dedication, and taking on this additional task of developing gender expertise. And I think we hear a lot, about the rollback and the pushback against gender issues. But when we look at the technical level, I see how we have grown as a community and how we are able to articulate the specific issues under specific areas of the convention. So I really see progress in this regard. And that's only possible because, of the commitment of governments, but also individuals. So thank you very much to all the gender focal points. And I think, the presentations you delivered today and the informed feedback you're presenting to Cambodia, it makes the case for the value of having gender focal points in the conventions. And I also wanted to thank Cambodia to being open for this dialogue. I think, we see that the draft action plan is already very strong in gender and diversity considerations. We see the mention to diverse populations across the draft action plan. And today we got a little bit more, very specific language and ideas for indicators, which I hope can be integrated. And I think already the feedback provided by the gender focal points has been very specific and very helpful, I think, for the next iteration of the action plan. But overall, just to say thank you and very much for the colleague joining from Lebanon to show that, what we discuss here in Geneva doesn't stay only in Geneva. It has an impact in affected communities. And by what we can see in Lebanon, this has been also the normative guidance created in Geneva has been also something that strengthened the work that they do on the ground. So thank you very much for everyone involved for their work.
Thank you, Renata. I think some of our focal points would also like to reflect on what they heard. As this is a dialogue with you and with the focal points, I'll give the floor to Atikan.
Actually, when I heard the presentation of our colleagues here, it's very inspiring, especially from Hiba in Lebanon, that it actually, as Renata said, it is very glad and heartwarming that whatever we discuss here is not stay here in Geneva. It's also have some impact and, of course, tremendous impact on the ground. So I think since we are developing the new action plans, and it's very good as well just to have the practitioner here with us. I would like to pose a question to Hiba as well. I've seen in your presentation there's too many and diverse activities that I think it might be, of course, written somehow. It's written on the Oslo Action Plan, but I believe majority of that is come from your creativity, innovation from people on the ground as well. So my question would be, what what do you want to see in the new action plan in terms of kind of be like a sort of supporting tools that help the state can achieve or strive more gender and diversity mainstream? That would be my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Atikarn. And before I turn to Hiba to answer this very important question, I will turn to Canada in the room. And Brian, please, you have the floor.
Thanks very much indeed, Hannah, to Unidir and all the panelists. Yes, plenty of excellent food for thought in advance of this upcoming second preparatory meeting later this week. It's also coming on the heels of last week's Convention on Cluster Munitions, Conference of States Parties, and I think a very packed disarmament agenda. And I think one of the words that really resonated with me personally, and I very much from my delegation as well, is the synergies across the different conventions. The international humanitarian disarmament treaties all are looking at gender as a very important element. But I think one of the other words that I heard was pushback. It's great to see a lot of this work being done across the different instruments, but we have very rich working papers and joint statements. When those are being pushed back against by quite a few delegations in the room, I think it's something that's not only disheartening, it's worrying. We're taking steps backwards from where we were with, say, the Oslo Action Plan in this context, and the Lausanne Action Plan in the CCM context. I'm hoping that we don't take as many steps back in this context, going to Siem Reap. I think this is one of the most mature, long-standing humanitarian disarmament instruments, and it's a lot of territory that we hope to be able to protect, and making sure that gender mainstreaming remains a very integral part of this instrument. I think it's a really sensible idea to have a standalone agenda item on this topic of gender, and so that really resonates with me and my delegation. And I would just perhaps question, like, what are some of the other ways that we can streamline across different, not only within the instrument itself, but with other instruments, because I think there are a lot of shared priorities across the different disarmament instruments. And I know that quite a few of the panelists, my distinguished colleagues, work on these different instruments as well. And so seeing where those synergies are, where it makes sense, and perhaps where it's, oh, that's actually, there's a reason why they're separate across these different elements. And taking advantage of the fact that we have the head of the ISU in the room, I think that the same question also goes to him in terms of what's the coordination happening across the different ISUs? Do they talk about this? And if not, why not? So I think synergies is struck me really as an important element of this conversation, and we're very much encouraged by the Cambodian government taking this element really seriously. So thank you very much indeed. We're looking forward to the meeting later this week. And again, I think Unidir, I can't go without saying a shameless plug for the important work that Unidir does in this regard. You're able to look at these issues throughout the calendar year, whereas the disarmament diplomats move from issue to issue to issue, and we see different things. You see the same thing from a bird's eye view. So I think these products that you've created are really important in that regard. But that was sort of a question, more of a statement. But perhaps if there are views from any of the panelists in terms of what are the synergies across the different instruments and how can we streamline gender more effectively? Thanks.
Thanks, Brian and Canada, for these comments and also for your question. I think I'll turn to Hiba online to answer the question and also ask her an additional question related to what Brian said, which is, in Lebanon, how do you push forward on the pushback? When you experience pushback at a national level, what are some of the strategies that you use? Because that's really important also to know in our conversations at a multilateral level. So, Hiba, over to you.
Thank you so much, Hannah. That's a very nice question. So basically, at a program level, what could help us more to mainstream gender? And I think that I a bit touched base when I talked in my presentation is basically funding is key. Let's be honest over here. If we want to see changes happening, if we want to be able to to mainstream gender, to add activities, to change things, we need to secure funding to do so. So basically, including of gender into country strategies and to the frameworks would support costs that are relevant to gender, would help programs like MAG Lebanon or any other program to include gender activities and to include costs relevant to gender activity. So this is key for us. If we want to see real change, we need to look into how can we push on funding, how can we increase our funding mainstreams. The second thing is, again, we need to look into development of the national capacities itself. So basically, this is something that can be done at program level, at country level, I'm sorry. So basically, we know our context is different from place to place, so you cannot cover base everything, but basically, if we supported the development of national capacities in gender mainstreaming, this would help us, again, to have ownership over how to mainstream gender and diversity. So I think these are two key things that from my level, I think it's very, very helpful and supportive. And I think including women, and I mean meaningful participation of women in conventions like or meetings like these, also like including of women from different countries to Geneva, so that they can talk about their experiences, they can talk about the things that worked well or the challenges that they have faced. So I hope I answered your question, but basically these are the things that I believe at country level would help and support us in our mission. If no other questions, I can go to the second question, Hannah.
Yes.
Definitely. So how do we push back? It's a very difficult question, but basically commitment. I'm going to talk about MAG overall, and MAG overall sees gender as a priority. It's part of our strategy. It's part of every discussion we have. So this helped programs like Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and other programs to talk more about gender and to keep on convincing. And you cannot convince everyone. You can start with the people who are on board, and you can show them. You can start with change and show them the change. And this is how MAG Lebanon have done it. We started small. We started at program level, and we took our case, we took our success story to the national authority. And this is how I am talking now that we can make changes. This is how I'm talking about we were able to show them how we disaggregate data and how this disaggregation has helped to shape our approach or our practices better. We show how it's more effective when we do this kind of disaggregation. So basically showcase the success stories can help others to come on board. So again, you cannot keep on focusing on the people that are not on board, but you can show them how it's done basically. And everyone would want to join after they see the benefits of such an approach. And I think that's it from my side.
Thank you, Hiba. That was really helpful, and I think especially when we think of international cooperation and assistance, it doesn't only mean funding. It can mean exchange of best practices, and that's what MAG is doing here at the level of the MENA region as well. And this regional approach at UNIDIR we often take and we find very useful as well when it comes to gender mainstreaming. Is there anyone here in the room who would like? Yes, Pilar, go ahead.
A statement, but I'm going to join my voice to my dear colleague from Canada. First of all, to thank you, UNIDIR, and all the gender focal points for this wrap-up of the situation on gender regarding the next action plan. is only to support some ideas. I mean, we can profit from the comments that were made by the coordinators to push a little bit the gender language in the new draft. So it will be great from our side. And also during the RefCom support what it was said by my colleague from the Netherlands, perhaps to have working paper of draft statement on gender, or perhaps to overall to push for a specific agenda item in the RefCom. And the last from my side will be this priority that is also from Spain to linking the different agendas regarding to gender issues, not only the disarmament agenda, but the women, peace and security agenda and the 2030 SDG agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pilar. We are just a little bit over time, but I will take any more questions or comments if anyone has. Thanks. Yes, Matea, you can go ahead.
I really appreciate UNIDIR's and Gender Focal Points presentations today, as well as Hiba's from Lebanon, MAG. I would like to echo also Renata's comment from the beginning that all the work of Gender Focal Points, UNIDIR and other stakeholders do bring result. It is well reflected in our view, much improved text of the new action plan, and we would like to thank also Cambodian presidency for the first draft to share it. However, we would also like to see a reference to women, peace and security in the introductory part of the new action plan. And then I would like to make a comment about data collection. It was raised a few times, which is a very important part of our work. It can be a two-layered problem, actually. First, it can be a challenge for the state party to collect relevant disaggregated data by gender, age, and disability. However, then it can be also a challenge for example, for the respective committees to provide well-informed advice back, because the reporting is based on this data-limited basis. And if it's not only advice to affected state parties, but also to donor communities, and with that we address a problem of funding, but also operators and relevant stakeholders. Again, I would like to thank everyone, and in particular Henriette for her work in the Committee on Victim Assistance. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to just give the floor to Belgium, Grit Grégoire online. Please, you have the floor.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not. I can't start the video, but that's okay. Let me quickly do it like this. I first of all want to thank also the whole panel and the different focal points, not only for the presentation made today, but also for all the efforts done in the course of the year, or in the course of the past 2 years. I also want to thank, of course, Hiba from MAG for the very interesting presentation and linking the reality in the field to the work that we are trying to do within the framework of the convention. I just would like to echo, I already wrote it down as a comment, but just wanted to echo some remarks made by the Netherlands, especially the also taking on board the women, peace and security mentioned somewhere in the action plan, as well as the organization of a dedicated session to gender during the 5th review conference. I think that would be a good opportunity to have also the different pillars coming together and be able to discuss that all together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for all your questions. I see that, Juan Carlo, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to to say that the gender focal points have, since the Oslo Review Conference, has been a very dynamic move to raise awareness on gender, which has been important and continues to be important on gender and diversity, but also beginning to look at how to do it in practice, which I think is very important. Inside mine-affected countries, there are no silos, when it comes to what convention the states are a party of, so I don't think it's a problem there. But I think in the Geneva level, we do tend to silo ourselves, but there's been some breaking of silos in the past, and especially with gender and victim assistance as well. There's been a lot of breaking of silos. One thing that we run into is we depend on the reporting of states parties. So the effort from the Committee on the Enhancement of Cooperation and Assistance to establish these mine action platforms that we've always talked about and how valuable they are, because in many countries, organizations such as MAG are doing a great job on gender and diversity issues and applying it in practice, but it's just not making its way into reports of mine-affected countries. So this kind of collaboration between these organizations and the national authorities are very important to ensure that all this information comes to Geneva, to the committees, so they can implement their mandate and take it apart. So I think improvements on reporting is going to be very important in the next years to come. So thank you.
Thanks, Juan Carlo. I think it's time for us to close this very interesting and engaging conversation. But of course, UNIDIR is always here and our ears are open, and we are always ready to collaborate with the gender focal points, but also with all the state parties and the ISU. From my perspective, there were several key takeaways from this, but really what struck me as important is first that the gender focal points are themselves an innovation, and it's still, relatively new, and it's something that we should keep exploring and keep refining. And I think the group that we have here has been excellent, and I'm sure has some recommendations for any future gender focal points as well. And that's an interesting conversation that we can have in the future. The second thing is that, as many people have already said, the Siem Reap Action Plan is already building on a very strong and solid basis. I think we have the commitment, most of the language is there. We can refine a little bit the indicators, but just as Juan Carlos said, we need to report, we need to put them into action. And this could be also something to consider from a donor perspective, is funding data collection efforts, and that's usually where we see gaps. And finally, the thing that struck me is institutionalization of gender mainstreaming through gender focal points in the convention, but also on the ground through gender mainstreaming committees like we saw at Lebanon is really going to be key moving forward. We need these institutions to create awareness and understanding, and to also share best practices. So I just wanted to close by thanking again the co-sponsors, Japan, Netherlands, Thailand, and Peru, our speaker from MAG Lebanon, Hiba, and special thanks to you, Mr. Ratha, and to your time and attention paid to this. And I hope that everyone found this useful and timely, and just to highlight that this kind of discussion would not be possible without our donors, who are UNIDIR Gender Program donors, Canada, Germany, Ireland, and Norway. So thank you to them. And I just wish you a good preparatory meeting, and a good continuation leading up to the review conference. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.